Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Inshallah, today we will finish off the chapter of Salah in Shafi'i Fiqh. So inshallah we'll cover Salatul Janazah and Salatul Jum'ah. Okay. So Salatul Jum'ah. First of all, the conditions for Salatul Jum'ah. Number one, that the entirety of Salatul Jum'ah, from the beginning of the khutbah until the end of the Salah, it should be within the time of Dhuhr. And this is according to the Shafi'i madhab, that the entirety of the Salah has to be in the time of Dhuhr. According to the Hanbali madhab, the Salah, it can be before Dhuhr. Okay? The next part is that it should be within a town. There should be a specific area set within the town that Salatul Jum'ah only occurs there. Okay, so if you go to a Muslim country, okay, usually they have many masajid. Every corner, every street you go, there's a masjid. So what happens in these countries is they have in the area one specific mosque should be set for Jum'ah only. And you cannot perform Jum'ah in like a rural area, it's not valid. It has to be within the town itself. Or for example, if you live in London, and in London you have like the M25 around the London motorway. If you imagine that to be the border of London, we can't go outside the M25, outside the border, to go and pray Jum'ah. It has to be within the border. The next part, again, this is according to the Shafi'i madhab, that it must be performed by 40 free, meaning they shouldn't be slaves. Muslim, meaning you can't pick a random kafir off the street and say, oh, we're missing one number, come pray with us. You can't do that. Male men, so it has to be Muslim, mature men, above the age of puberty, who live in the town. So travelers can't make up the number. Okay? And again, this is according to the Shafi'i madhab, and this is more according to the linguistic linguistic understanding of what a congregation is, or a jama'ah, like what constitutes it. And there is some dalil that it is 40 men, but having looked at it myself, there isn't really strong dalil for the number 40 other than from linguistic purposes. And the next part is that it should be the only Jum'ah held in the area. So there shouldn't be more than one Jum'ah held in an area. Okay, so if you're in London, you should only technically have one Jum'ah. But as we know, this isn't really possible in many areas out of darura, necessity, which is why we have many masajid who have their, different Jum'ahs, or many masajid they have one or two or even three Jum'ah, because they can't accommodate the numbers. It's impossible. So they have to do this out of necessity. But if possible, then you should only have one jama'ah. And there must be 2 khutbahs before the prayer, and we will cover the khutbah again. So we covered it last week, but we will cover it again this week, inshallah. Okay, so the Sunnah of Jum'ah. The first one is, according to the Shafi'i madhab, that it is Sunnah to have a shower before you leave the house. According to the Maliki madhab, having a shower is wajib. You have to have a shower. But according to Shafi'i madhab, it is best to have a shower. Sunnah. The next one is to brush the teeth, trim the nails, pluck and remove the body hair. So pluck the pubic hair and the hair under the armpits. To perfume the body and to wear the nicest clothes you have. And the best kind of clothing to wear is white clothes. And this is from the Sunnah and from the companions, that they said the best clothes to wear is white clothing. And this is from the adab of a Muslim. The things that are fitrah. Your innates need to be clean. Okay, and this is what we have as a Muslim, and you should make sure on Friday that we are at our cleanest. The next part is that you should arrive in the masjid early, before the Imam arrives. And this is from the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, at the door of the masjid on Friday there stands an angel, and he writes in a book everybody who attends the masjid. So when someone comes in, he writes their name. But as soon as the Imam enters, the Imam starts giving the khutbah, the angel closes the book of people who came in, he puts the book away, and he listens to the khutbah as well. Okay? This doesn't mean if you're late you don't get any reward. You get reward, but the best way to get reward is to come before the imam and listen to the entirety of the khutbah and pray with the imam. Okay, I've seen too many people, they only come to pray. The main part of Jum'ah isn't just the prayer, it's the khutbah as well. It's very important that you have to attend the khutbah. The next part is to come on foot if you can, so to walk to the masjid. So if you can't walk, then it's okay to take a horse, a car and so on. But if you can walk, you should walk. The next part is to sit near the front, so in the first saf, in the first row. And before the imam arrives, to do adhkar, to read salat ala nabi, so Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And this is the best time to make dua and so on the day of Jum'ah. And you should recite Surah Al-Kahf before the day of Friday, the day before Friday, the night of Thursday. So if you remember the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that if you read Surah Al-Kahf on Thursday night, Allah places a lamp in front of you that guides you the whole week until the next Thursday. So it's permissible also to recite it on Friday, but the best time is Thursday night, inshallah. Okay, the khutbah itself. So the minimal part of the khutbah, it's like what constitutes a khutbah. Allah must be praised in both of the khutbah. And then you should say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad in both khutbah. You should read the ayat of taqwa and enjoin taqwa in both of the khutbah. And there are specific ayat that you can go and research, inshaAllah. And then you should make dua for the Muslims in the second khutbah. So say Allahumma sur al-Muslimin wa adilla shirka wal mushrikeen. Oh Allah, bring victory to the Muslims and humble and humiliate the enemies of the Muslims. And this is the minimum part of the khutbah. Okay. The conditions of being the khatib. The khatib is the one who gives the khutbah. Number one, they should be pure. They should have done wudu. They should have done ghusl. If he loses his wudu during the khutbah, then he must go and do wudu and start again. If he loses it after the khutbah, so he's given the khutbah and then he loses it before prayer, it's okay. He does the wudu and comes back. The next one is his clothing, his place of prayer, and his body must be pure from any physical impurity. The third one is that he should cover his awrah. His private parts must be covered. Number 4, he should stand if he can. Number 5, he should sit between the two khutbah for a short pause. Number 6 is that there shouldn't be too long of a pause. So he shouldn't do the first khutbah, go have a cup of tea and come back. He should first khutbah, second khutbah. Number 7 is doing the salat straight after both khutbahs. You don't do 2 khutbahs, go have a cup of tea and come back. You have the khutbah and then you pray. The next part is that the main parts, the integral parts of the khutbah must be done in Arabic. Okay? They have to be done in Arabic. And the main parts of the khutbah are what is detailed here. Okay? So the praising of Allah and so on. These parts must be done in Arabic. It is okay to do it in English, the rest of the khutbah, or German, French, whatever language people speak in the vicinity, but these main parts must be done in Arabic. And 40 Muslim free men who are mature must hear the khutbah in order for it to be valid, according again to the Shafi'i madhab. And again, according to the Shafi'i madhab, the khutbah must be in the time of dhuhr. It can't start before dhuhr. It must be as soon as dhuhr commences, the khutbah must be given then. Okay. So the sunnah of giving the khutbah. The first one is that the khatib must stand on a minbar. Okay, so a minbar is like a raised platform. If this is impossible, then he should stand somewhere where he's isolated and he can be seen. The next one is that he should say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh when he enters the jama'ah. So like we said, everyone should be in the mosque before the imam enters. Then the imam walks in, gives everyone salam, and then starts a khutbah. The imam should sit down until both adhans are done. So on the day of Jum'ah, for Salatul Jum'ah, what we do is we give 2 adhans. So we give 1 adhan at the time of dhuhr, and then a second adhan to remind people that Jum'ah is starting now. Okay, and this is from the time of Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, that they started giving 2 adhans. because there was too many people, the Muslim area, and the amount of people had grown to a point that giving one adhan wasn't sufficient enough for Jum'ah, and people were missing the Jum'ah, so they had to do 2 adhans to make it suffice. The fourth one is that the khatib should lean on a sword, a staff, or a bow. Okay, and this is the Sunnah. Okay, and I don't know why this Sunnah isn't really followed these days. So leaning on a sword, staff, or a bow. And the last one is that the khatib should face the jama'ah, and he shouldn't shake his head right to left. And this is a bid'ah. It's an innovation that people have done in the past, even to this day, that they shake their head when giving the khutbah, or they move right to left rapidly for no reason. You know, what the khatib should do is just look at the jama'ah, look at the people he is giving the khutbah to, and he shouldn't move his head right to left constantly. Okay. So that concludes Salatul Jum'ah, the Friday prayer. And just a reminder, the Friday prayer is فَرْضُ عَيْنٍ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ مُكَلَّفٍ. It is an individual obligation upon every single Muslim man who is mature and lives in a city. Okay? You have to pray Salatul Jum'ah. And if you miss it, you know, if there's an accident and you miss it, then you pray Dhuhr instead. Okay, and if you can't pray it, for example, if there's heavy rain outside when you can't leave, or there's a storm, or there's a virus like coronavirus, and you can't pray Jum'ah, you have to pray Salatul Dhuhr instead. And it is not obligatory upon the woman to pray Salatul Jum'ah. It is not obligatory upon the woman or the child. It is only obligatory upon the Muslim free man who lives in a city, and they have to pray it. Okay. So that concludes Salatul Jum'ah, and now this is the final prayer, inshaAllah, that we have to cover according to the book I'm following, and this is Salatul Janazah. So what happens, what do we do when a Muslim dies? How do we clean him? What are the things we have to do upon him? Salatul Janazah is Fard Kifaya, meaning not everybody has to do it. As long as one person has done it, then it is fine for everybody else. Just one man has to stand up and do all of these things that I'm going to describe, inshallah. Okay, so the 4 things that we do for the dead person. We have an obligation, they have an obligation upon us that we do these things for them. And number 1 is that we wash their body. Number 2 is that we shroud their body. Number 3 is that we pray upon the body. And number 4 is that we bury the body. Okay. So, washing the body. It is enough to wash the body just one time. So just wash it with water, that's enough. The best way is to start off by washing and cleaning the private parts, because when a person dies, they still have feces and urine still in their body. So there's a way that these people who clean the body, that they follow, that they can make the feces and all that, they make them leave the body. So they compress on certain parts of the body, and the poo will leave the body. So this is the Sunnah. You start off with doing this. You clean whatever comes out from the private parts, so the urine and the feces. Then you clean the nose. Then you wash the parts of wudu, meaning the head, the arms, the feet, and the face. And then you rub the body once over with lotus leaves. And then you wash the body 3 times with water. Okay? When the body is being washed, they should be treated in a respectful manner. So they should be washed in private. And the only people who should be present is the person washing the body and the assistant of whoever's helping him. The only 2 people should be present. And the body should be washed with warm water in a warm place which is covered. So in privacy with warm water. Because whatever you do to us, the body can feel the same thing. If you harm the body feels it. Okay? And whilst the body is being washed, there should be oud in the area. So oud is incense. Good smelling stuff should be burnt in the area to cover the smell. Now, shrouding the dead body. A man is shrouded with 3 cloths. Okay, so 1 cloth around his so izar, we call that like in Bengali I think you call it lungi, in Somalia ma'awis, so like a thing around his waist. and then another one around his chest, and then one more over the rest of his body. A woman, on the other hand, is covered with 5 cloths. One for her izar, as an izar, so a waist cloth. A second one for her chest, her upper body. A third one as a hijab or qimar upon her head. And then the final 2 around the rest of the body. No, I'm not Bengali, no. I just know what these words mean. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, this lecture is recorded as a reminder. So, once you've washed the body, you shrouded the body, now you have to pray upon the body. So we're not praying to the body, we're praying upon the body. So the way you pray it, yeah, what's your question? No. For a female, so there's specific people who should wash. The people who should wash the female is the person who should be washing is a relative of the deceased. Okay. No, if nobody else is there to wash it, then anyone can wash the body. But it should be the relatives of the deceased to wash the body. Okay. But if there's nobody else to wash, then it's fine, because this is part of the things that a Muslim must have done upon them. And whilst the body is being washed, the private area should be covered. Okay, so once you've removed all the filth from the body, then you should cover the private area for the man and for the woman whilst they're being washed. Yeah, it should be the same gender if possible. But again, the obligation of the body being washed is greater than the obligation of the same gender washing it. So the body should be washed by the deceased and the private area should be covered, if that's what you're worrying about. Okay. So now praying upon the dead body. You start off by placing the body in front of the jama'ah. So whilst you're praying, the body is in front of you. You start off with having the intention. So the intention that you say, I'm going to pray upon Salatul Janazah, Fard Kifaya. Because it's a communal obligation. So it's Fard Kifaya. If you don't remember what these terms mean, then inshallah go to the first lesson where we covered, first or second lesson, I don't remember anymore, where we covered what Fard Kifaya is. So the first part is the intention. The second part is that you must stand if you can. It is not valid for you to sit down out of laziness. You have to stand if you can stand. And then the way it is done, there are 4 takbirs. Okay, so whilst giving the takbirs, you don't do any sujood, you don't do any ruku', you're just standing the whole time. So you're standing like you stand for a normal prayer. And you start off with Allahu Akbar, 1 time. And then you recite Al-Fatiha. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, wa ghayri al-maqdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. Ameen. And then Allahu Akbar. And you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka fil alamin innaka hamidun majid. And then Allahu Akbar a 3rd time. Then you recite dua for the dead person. And it is enough for the dua to be Allahumma ighfirhum, or Allahumma ighfirha, or Allahumma, just Allah forgive them. You say in Arabic. Okay? Or Allahumma arhamha. So Allah forgive this person. And there is a specific dua that I've forgotten. Let me see if I can find it quickly. That you read for the dead person in the prayer. Sec. Okay, I can't find the dua, but it is enough to say Allahumma arhamha. That's enough. And then after doing dua, you say Allahu Akbar a 4th time, and then Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the right, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the left. And that is enough for it to cover the obligation of what we do for the dead person. So does anyone have any questions about Salatul Janazah, the prayer itself? If you can't travel, yes. So if the body isn't present, we can do something called Salatul Janazah fil Ghaib. So praying upon the dead person when you are not present. So say for example you heard about a calamity that happened to a Muslim, to the Muslimin in a certain country, for example in Syria. So what you can do, you can just stand up, face the Qibla and pray Salatul Janazah for him without the body present. And Allah will give you the same reward. But you don't have to do this, okay? It's better to do this, to pray Salatul Janazah for the dead Muslim, but it is not necessary. So for example, I remember I was once in the masjid after Jum'ah, and the Imam stood up after the Jum'ah and he said, we're going to pray Salatul Janazah for a dead woman who died in Mexico. She died in Mexico, she was a convert to Islam, she died, and her family, they were non-Muslim. So what they did, they cremated her, they burnt her body. So what we decided to do, the Imam decided to do, was to pray Salatul Janazah for her in Ghaib. So if someone doesn't know Arabic, is it okay to make the dua in English? No, it is not okay to make the dua in English. The dua, anything you say in prayer, must be done in Arabic. Okay? It has to be done in Arabic. It cannot be done in any other language. So, no, there are no raka'at. It's just 4 takbeers while standing. There's no sujood, no ruku'. No sitting down. You stand up the whole time. First takbir, Fatiha. Second takbir, Salat ala nabi. Third takbir, dua. Fourth takbir, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Do you need to know the meaning of a dua? No, as long as you make the dua. So, it is enough, like I said, to say Allahumma arhamha. Just Allah have mercy upon them. But there is a specific dua, someone can search it maybe for us. It's a long dua, I've forgotten it actually. But there is a dua you meant to recite, but it is enough, it suffices to say Allahumma arhamha. So now on to burying the dead body. So when you are digging the grave, the minimum grave that is acceptable is a grave that it is deep enough that when the body is covered by the earth, that it protects the body from any animals. So some animals, they like to eat meat, right? If they see a dead body, it's food for them, they'll eat it. So we should protect the body from being eaten by an animal. And that is the minimum grave. The best grave is that it is deep enough that if a man is standing up with his arm raised to the top, that it is concealed. So about 2 meters deep. And that is enough. That is the Sunnah. And when the body is being buried, it is wajib for the person burying, it is wajib for the person burying the body to make the body face the Qibla. So the body is buried on its side. Okay, you don't lay it flat on its back. It is laid on the right side facing the Qibla. Okay. And then you throw the soil on top of the body. The reason it's important for all of us to know the correct procedure for how to treat the dead Muslim and how to bury them is because you might find yourself in a situation where, in an unforeseen situation, inshallah, I don't want any of us to be in the situation, that you're traveling with someone maybe in the desert and you die, and your partner dies, okay? And it is upon you to clean the body, to shroud the body, to pray upon the body, and to bury it. You can't just leave the body there. You have to do that. And this is a real situation, it can happen to you. And subhanallah, the brother describes he digging the father of his own, digging the grave of his own father. Subhanallah, may Allah have mercy upon him. And it is sunnah to go visit the graves, okay? So visiting the grave to remind ourselves about the dead and to make dua for the dead people, because the dead people are more in need of dua than we are. Okay, we can go pray, the dead person can't pray anymore. We have to make dua for them. And it is haram to ask them to make dua for us. Because the dead person, we need dua more than them. They need dua more than us, sorry. We can still pray, we can still fast, we can still give zakat. The dead person, they can't give zakat. The barrier is close for them. All we can do is give zakat, sadaqah for them, sorry. And to do stuff in their name, such as building masajids, giving out Qur'ans and so on, so that they can get good deeds. But fasting for the dead is another situation. I think that's a more complex question. But if they have fasts that they haven't fasted, then yeah, you can. Or for Hajj, if you can't afford to do Hajj for them. So if they haven't done their Hajj, then you can pay for their Hajj to be done. And if you can't do that, you have to fast for them or give money on their behalf. Okay. The one thing that the dead person is never forgiven for, so Allah forgives every sin except shirk, except associating a partner with Him. The second thing that the dead person, his obligation isn't gotten rid of, is repaying the debt. If a Muslim dies in debt, then you have to make sure that his debt is paid. Okay? And his descendants, the people who inherited from him, should pay off his debts. And this is never forgiven until it is paid. Even for the martyr, you have to pay off the debts as a Muslim. And this is the importance of fulfilling the rights of different people. Okay? Islam is very, very strict about fulfilling the rights of the dead people. If you can't pay off his debts, then you have to try your hardest to pay off his debts. Or raise sadaqah to pay off his debts. The obligation never leaves. Okay. We'll talk about what happens to a person who dies in war, inshallah, in 1 second. So if a person can't, if you can't pay off his debt, then you do your utmost to pay off his debt, or find the person who the debt is owed to, and maybe work off his debt for him. But the debt is never forgiven. Even if a person prayed 100 salah every day and he died owing debt to somebody, then he will not be forgiven until he either pays it. If it's not paid for him, then there is a point at the day of judgment before the people enter heaven where the debts will be repaid. And this is a part of a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if I wronged another Muslim, so say there was one Muslim, Hamza for example, in this lecture, if I bullied him today, and he regretted, he hated me for bullying him, he held this against me, maybe he didn't manifest it with hate, but he felt it in his heart that I bullied him. And then on the day of judgment, there'll be a point where Allah will take my good deeds and give it to him. And if I have no more good deeds, Allah will take his bad deeds and give them to me. So imagine you prayed 100 prayers every day, but you were oppressive. You used to violate the rights of people, steal their money and so on. Used to murder people, and used to steal from houses. You're never going to be forgiven for this until the day of judgment, where Allah will balance everything between the Muslimin. Okay, and this is before you enter heaven. So imagine you could come on the day of judgment with a mountain of good deeds, and you could leave with a mountain of bad deeds, all on account of your being oppressive and not fulfilling the rights of other people. And this is it's a reminder for the people like in a position of authority, whether they're like rulers, cashiers, all of these kind of people. Isn't an easy situation to be in, where you're responsible for the rights of other people. Yes, eventually all Muslims will go to Jannah. This is correct. The Prophet ﷺ said, anybody with an atom's weight of Iman will eventually enter Jannah. Okay? And that is correct. Okay. I think that concludes Salatul Janazah. So on to the last bit. The shaheed, the martyr. Why are we going through the martyr now? The reason is, anybody who died as a martyr, as a shaheed, we do not pray Salatul Janazah upon them. We do not wash the body, we do not shroud the body, and we do not pray upon the body. Okay? So if you die in this state, then we just bury as you are. And the reason is because the shaheed, when they die in that state, as soon as the blood starts leaving their body, Allah forgives all of their sins. They are sinless. Allah has forgiven them completely. A martyr, a shaheed. Okay, so as soon as they start to die, Allah has forgiven all of their sins. Okay, so they are sinless, and we don't wash them, we don't pray Salatul Janazah upon them, we just bury them. Okay, so we don't wash them, don't shroud them, we don't pray upon them, just bury them as they are. And this is because of the reward that they have gotten from dying as a martyr. So there are 7 things that are described from the hadith that describe how a person dies as a martyr. So the first thing is somebody being killed for the sake of Allah. Okay, someone dying whilst fighting. And this means somebody dying in a fight that is permissible. And these are defending your wealth and your property from theft, or defending your life from the enemies, or defending other Muslims from enemies who came to attack them. Okay, so in jihad. And people, when they hear the word jihad, are, oh my god, evil, oh my god, terrorism. La, this is something righteous, something good. Dying defending other people. If people are being oppressed, you go, you defend them. It's nothing to do with terrorism or extremism or radicalism, anything like that. Somebody who dies in jihad, they've died a martyr. So they died defending other people. The next one is dying from the plague. The next one is dying from pleurisy. The next one is dying from stomach disease. The next one is dying from being in a burning building, so burning to death. Somebody who dies like this, they've died a shaheed. The next one is dying from a building collapsing upon them, such as the Muslimin who died in Gaza. When the buildings they were in, they were bombed and the building fell on them and they died. Or a Muslim who dies in an earthquake and a building falls on him, he died a shaheed. And the final one is any woman who dies as a result of pregnancy or childbirth. Okay, I've omitted one. And one more, the final one is any Muslim who dies from drowning. And the reason is, like, these are the worst ways to die. They're very, very painful, or very psychologically difficult ways to die. So anyone who dies in this fashion, then he has died the death of a martyr. And Allah has forgiven all of his sins, and inshallah Allah will enter him into the Jannah without any of the tribulations that come between death and Jannah. Okay, and that concludes today's lesson, inshallah. It was a short lesson because it was just finishing off the chapter of Salah. So next time, inshallah, we will cover Zakah, Zakatul Fitr, Zakatul Mal. And that's a bit of a more hefty chapter, but I think we can finish it all in one lesson. And then after that we have Hajj, and with Hajj, that is the entirety of Fiqh covered. So the basic 5 pillars of Fiqh are covered. So does anybody have any questions about anything we went through today, or anything else that you need help with regards to Fiqh or Hadith or any other Islamic topic? It's fine if it's not related. Okay. That's fine, no worries. Okay, if there are no further lessons, questions, inshallah, sorry. Not really. A COVID would not come under the ruling of a plague, but the person who dies from COVID, they can still die as a martyr. So these things that I mentioned, they are directly from the hadith, but there are other things that you still be considered to have died as a martyr. And some of the ways you can die from COVID, you'd be considered a shaheed. Okay, so I was reading recently about this. So if someone who had COVID and they died from lung failure, so their lungs failed and they died like that, then they'd be considered a shaheed. Okay? They'd fall under it, but if you didn't die, if you just died from COVID, other unrelated reasons, not lung failure, then you wouldn't have died as a shaheed. But if you died from lung failure from COVID, then yes. Dying from a heart attack is not, you do not die as a shaheed dying from a heart attack. Okay, but there are specific guidelines. This is a lengthy topic within itself of what constitutes dying as a martyr. But these are just the 8 basic stuff, including drowning, that are mentioned directly in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But the scholars have outlined other stuff, and you can go and read these, inshallah. Yeah, if somebody died from lung failure, then we make dua that Allah accepts him as a martyr and enters him into the paradise. If there's no further questions, we will end here, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan all for attending and benefiting. And if there's anything that you benefited from, anything you found beneficial, then it is from Allah. If there's anything that confused you or did not benefit you, then this is from my own flaws and shaitan, and I ask Allah to forgive me for that. أقول قولي هذا فاستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا قلب لا تحزن على صحب فقدناهم على صحب لهم جرح عميق ما ذكرناهم، عشقناهم صغار الحي ما أحلى محياهم، وكم نشتاقهم والعيد يأتينا بذكر.